Righto, so I'm not very good at doing Zoom calls and stuff like that. I've never recorded one, so this is probably going to be a weird looking interview, seeing as I'm lying on my side. Just getting all relaxed here. So this is Gonzo. Gonzo is a Spanish dude. Say good day, Gonzo.
How's it going, mate?
Gonzo approached us, well, 2 years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, probably closer to three, I'd imagine.
Quite a long time
But
ago.
yeah, between two and three.
And we've been in touch ever since. But basically, tell us why you approached us, Gonzo.
Oh well, I had in mind to do a big trip on horseback. At the time, I wasn't too sure what that would look like because I was not a horse rider or had ever done anything like that. But yeah, I found you guys online. I saw that I was especially interested in talking about with you guys about gear because I had seen that you guys seem to know your shit around gear and made your own stuff and all of that. So yeah, I was just trying to like meet people who knew how to guide me and tell me a bit of where to start, what to look at, what to think about. And so yeah, that's why I approached you guys.
Now, honestly, right from the start, I was very impressed with everything Gonzo said. He was very humble. He really just had a quest for knowledge. He really had a great vision in his mind of what he wanted to achieve, but didn't have any idea really how to go about it. And rather than act like the big hero, he asked everyone he could find, not just us, numerous people, and really formulated what I considered to be a really, really, really good plan, and ended up completing what I consider to be the most ethical long ride just about ever done by a beginner. But tell us about your ride. How did it all come together, mate? And what did you do?
So it all started. Let me think. So I started riding horses just because I was interested in it and started riding in an arena in a city. And was really like I was really liking it, but wasn't quite doing it either. Like I wanted to get out there, I wanted to get into nature and ride a bit more and not focus so much on being technically correct, but more just fucking riding the horse and doing cool stuff with it.
Yep.
And yeah, and then I read a book about this woman who'd done a crazy adventure with camels, not horses. But anyways, I just got the idea of like, oh, I'm gonna do a big trip on a horse, and yeah, it was just from the moment I got the idea, it was 100% clear in my head that I was gonna do it. I had no doubt in my mind. And then yeah, I just started to look for people who had done it, who could guide me to see if how realistic this was. I started with the idea of like riding to Azerbaijan or something like that, like being on the road for like a year. And then I started talking to people and like started cutting it down and making it simpler and easier. In the end, I barely left Spain, just stepped over the border in 3 months. So yeah, I just got a more realistic idea. And then in the end, the trip ended up being leaving from the house of a friend of mine who lent me his mare. So I started at his house, at the mayor's house, which is in the west of Spain. Walked all the way to the border of France, so stepped over the border, touched France with my foot, and turned back and made it all the way back to the mayor's house. So sort of like completed a circle, went in a different way through the north of Spain and then through a bit the interior.
Yeah, I've sort of normally only got to touch French soil to want to head back to German soil too. So, but um, look, this is something that it's a big undertaking, but you really had very little experience. And I remember you mentioning your experience in Israel was something that inspired you to do it on horseback. Can you tell us about that?
True, yeah, that's what inspired me to start riding horses really. And in Israel, I was doing a trip on Israel on my own, and the last day of my trip, I was going to go to some hot springs that someone had recommended, and I was imagining something like yeah, bit natural in natural hot springs in nature or something like that. And I got there, and it was like a fucking amusement park with a gigantic parking lot, uh, like ten big buses, big signs of happy families bathing in
Yeah.
these hot springs. And I was like, oh no, this is not what I've come for. So I just on the spot started looking for alternatives on my phone and found that there was a place that did horse rides, and I called them up. I was like, can I do a horse ride in like an hour or two maximum? Because after that I had to leave. And they were like, yeah, we've got a spot. I went to do this ride, and yeah, that was I think the second time in my life I got on top of a horse. First time had been years back. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. I loved it. My horse went at one point into a canter, and I almost shot myself out of fear, but was pumped with adrenaline and absolutely loved it. And also had one of those moments of clarity of like, I need to know how to do that without shitting my pants and be in control of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me into horses. And then, yeah, one thing led to the other.
It's brilliant. And then, yeah, you practiced in Holland. You did your riding in the arena and things like that. You did a workaway stay with David, borrowed David's horse. And how long did you go out for?
It was 3 months and a half. And it was, 105 days. It was, yeah, pretty much exactly 3 months and a half.
And what was your highs of the trip?
Oof. Highs of the trip, there was many. There was many individual moments. Out of the top of my head, I know that there was this one place that there was one part of the trip that was by far the hardest, physically and logistically, and everything was out because it was going through mountains in the Basque Country. I had got routes from a guy who had done it before, but this guy is a fucking animal. He's a legend, but he's a bit of an animal.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was super hard, super physical. At times got a little bit scary, even in the mountain, and yeah, it was really challenging. But I found through this trip that always, whenever you do the more challenging stuff, you'd also be surely rewarded with the coolest stuff. And so I remember in between those mountains, stopping at like an artificial lake, like a water reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like paradise. I had it all to myself, and there was a little bar in the corner where I spent a couple days. I wasn't planning on stopping there, but I just came across it and ended up staying 2 days and just drank like a fish at that bar and ate. The bar had like a patch of beautiful grass right next to it where my mare spent the day, and it was just my mare eating the grass in the bar and me drinking and eating. And going in the water in this lake, and just perfect camping spot, and a little bit of people, but not many. So I had a couple chats. It was just blissful. It was just the biggest reward to all of that effort. And then after getting out of those mountains, once I finished it, was also amazing because I got into the Camino de Santiago, which some people will know. It's a big pilgrimage route in Spain, very famous, lots of people. So it was kind of like getting into civilization. I knew that from that moment on, it was going to be easy mode. All the difficult work had been done, and now it was just sort of like just stride along in this super easy trail where forget about looking at a map, forget about looking for places to sleep, forget about counting how many days food you need to pack. It's just easy mode. And so that also felt really good. And then, I have to mention, fell in love in the trip also, so that was also quite amazing.
Yeah.
Can't leave that one out, I wouldn't be honest. So that was also pretty amazing. And yeah, I think that on the top of my head, those I would say, but there's so many highlight moments, really.
And you sort of touched on the lows. I'm not even going to bother asking what the lows are because you really nailed it. The lows just make the highs so much better, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, to be honest, there was so many lows, and way more than I thought, way more than I expected. Like the whole thing, I think inevitably when you're going into it, you idealize a lot of it, and then at least for me, I don't, not necessarily would be like that for everyone, but for me, a big chunk of it was not so nice, not so pretty. But yeah, that's part of it, and that's what makes it special, and that's what makes it an achievement, and that's what makes you proud of yourself for overcoming it at the end of it.
Yeah, and like when you got to the end of it, I remember speaking to you and congratulating you. Firstly, I will mention why I was congratulating you. Your approach to ethics throughout was exemplary. I received questions from you, every week. I mean, at times it was, you'd be messaging me every 2 or 3 days with a question. And I really commend that. I really do. You were so focused on taking care of your mare. And you were so focused on achieving things, but achieving them the right way. And I just think what you did was brilliant. But at the end of the trip, I remember you saying, I don't want to go back to my flat. I don't want to be comfortable again. Tell me what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, I remember that. I remember saying that to you, and I remember perfectly the feeling of it. And yeah, I like that summer that I went back to Spain, and I was on vacation, and I was so like nervous to like. I would have imagined I would want a good rest, vacation, eat well, spend time with the family, but it was almost the opposite. Like I was like nervous and anxious to do that and like to stop because I just wanted to keep going because yeah, as rough and hard as it was, being uncomfortable so much, just it's very fulfilling, I guess, and it's a very simple way to be. And yeah, very fulfilling, very fulfilling and very straightforward. There's no, I don't know, there's no complications to it. Like, I mean, obviously it's very hard, but there's such a simplicity to it where you're just advancing and moving forward and taking care of firstly your mare and then yourself. And as long as you've got that sorted, you just keep moving and deal with the bads, knowing that the goods will come right after, and then followed by the bads again, and like that all the time. But it's I guess it's always said, no, it's in hardships and all that you grow. Those are like cliche phrases. I fucking hate those kind of phrases.
Yeah, but it's true, man.
They're true, and yeah. Well, in this case, yeah, being uncomfortable in that sense was very fulfilling.
Well, if there's one quote that I'm known for, it's comfort teaches you nothing. And I think that a long ride, comfort, it's something you really appreciate after the hardships you go through. Now, it sounds, you're really saying that the ride was life-changing for you. But how did your life actually change post-ride? Like, what's different for you now? And where are you? And what are you doing in comparison to what you were doing before the idea of riding?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Australia because I followed the girl that I fell in love with here, so that was a big one.
Yeah.
and like this last year in Australia has been pretty amazing. I've been working with racehorse. So before going on this trip, I was working in an office job, a sales office job, which I was happy doing. Yeah, I wasn't unhappy doing it, but yeah, then I went on this ride. It seemed like the kind of thing that you just know that you have to do it now. It's the moment. Why not? And then since then came to Australia following this girl. It didn't work out, but I ended up working with race horses for 4 months, just a landing, nothing exciting, like not an especially exciting job, but it just opened up the sort of like the gates to Australia for me, enabled me to make a bit of money again. And then I went to New Zealand, hiked for 2 months in New Zealand. On the Tiararoa Trail, which is just an incredibly beautiful hike the whole South Island, 1,400 kilometers during 2 months. That was so incredible, so wonderful, in many ways similar to doing a horse ride, in many ways different, has different difficulties. All the things are easier, but anyways, just a different adventure, but also so amazing. And then from there I went on to work for 4 months on the Australian outback at a cattle station, basically like a fucking cowboy, like a movie cowboy, moving cattle on horseback. Wow. That was amazing. That was intense, the most intense work I've ever done in my life by far. And such a amazing experience to do, and learned a lot from it. And now I'm back to the office that I was, but here in Australia. So back to office job, with sort of the idea to make money again and I do feel a bit like relaxing for a bit, staying stable for a little bit, maybe a year, maybe 2, who knows? And basically do the same, build a bit of money, build a bit of motivation and energy, and go out at it again, probably bigger.
Now, before we started recording, it's worth mentioning we were talking about a mate of yours that's going to take you spearfishing, and I'm arranging through mates of mine in Melbourne to take you out and get you into hunting sambar in the high country. And it seems that although you say you're going to be sort of stationary and resting for a little while, you're upskilling. And just like how you went and hiked in New Zealand, it sounds like you really are setting yourself up for something else. But I think about the Too Raw to Ride guy and the reasons that he went for his ride and wanting to be a social media star. And I compare that to the way you rode. And honestly, mate, I think you are one of the most inspirational young people I've ever spoken to. You have all of the characteristics of someone that's not only going to go on to be an amazing human being, but someone that's going to inspire others. I cannot commend you enough for what you've done. I think it's one of those things where I think you should be talking to school groups and stuff. I cannot give you enough credit for the way you're living your life. And you're still only young. Like, how old are you?
27.
27. You've got a uni degree behind you. You've got a career ahead of you, and you've found a way to do just incredible things. So yeah, Gonzo, if you could give people considering a long ride some advice, like what is the one big thing you'd want to advise people on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for everything you've said, mate. You know that
You deserve it. You deserve it.
That reaches the potato, as we say in Spanish. The heart. I really appreciate it. And yeah, advice to people who would want to do this. I mean, the biggest piece of advice is I never like giving advice because I always think it depends on who it is. I would give one advice or another. But I'll think of someone like me. If I wasn't giving advice to myself, I just fucking do it. Like, the only piece of advice I can say is do it. Do it. Obviously, if you want to do something like this, go ahead and do it. Nothing's stopping you except for you. You have to make sure you have one condition only, really, which is if you take an animal, you need to take care of the animal. It's your responsibility, and that is your one job while you're doing this. If you've got that covered, just do it. You'll sort yourself out, and yeah, everything will sort itself out. If it turns out it sucks for you and you don't enjoy it, well, there's your lesson. You've already got that. That's already quite something, and you've tried it. But yeah, the advice I'd give to people is fucking go for it. And also, if you're gonna do something like this and you are an absolute ignorant at it, like I was, look for people who can give you the knowledge you need. Nowadays with internet, it's so fucking easy to find people who do the things you want to do. So yeah, just do a bit of research. I'm terrible at doing research. I got a bit of my attention doesn't hold for very long, like reading books or doing stuff like that. So what works for me is what I did with you, Pete. Reach out to people, have a chat, and try to meet them in person, if not on the phone or whatever. But yeah, have conversations with people who know what they're talking about, so that they can tell you what you have to worry about, and then just fucking go for it.
Yep, absolutely spot on. Like I said, mate, it's just what you achieved is, as far as I'm concerned, it is the absolute benchmark, and you prove without any shadow of a doubt that someone that's completely new can achieve great things, provided they're realistic, and yeah, just do what you did. Anyway, buddy, look, it's been fantastic talking to you. I've got to keep my videos a bit shorter. Thanks, mate. Thanks a lot, and we'll speak real soon. Okay. Awesome.
Sounds good. My pleasure, Pete.
No worries.
Thank you as always.
Cheers, mate.